Okay, I believe we are live. Hello, everyone. Happy Monday. Thank you so much for joining us live virtually in the Heart Hustle Studio. We're live right now on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. And I just wanted to take this moment to say thank you to all of you for joining us today from your home, your office, wherever you're at. I hope all of you are staying healthy and safe and also warm and dry given today's weather. Before we begin this amazing live chat, I'd like to open our virtual live with a land acknowledgement. To the original people of the land, the Nisenan people, the Southern Maidu Valley and Plains Miwok, Putwin and Wintu peoples, and the people of Walton Rancheria, Sacramento's only federally recognized tribe. May we acknowledge and honor the Native people who came before us and still walks beside us today on these ancestral land by choosing to gather today in the active practice of acknowledgement and appreciation for Sacramento's Indigenous peoples' history, contributions, and lives. Again, thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today for our monthly live chat. I'm so excited for this month's live chat. As we close out Women History Month this week, our team wanted to take this opportunity to really center and uplift some of our amazing local women leaders right here in Sacramento that is doing everything they can to uplift and heal our community. As the global pandemic enters its third year, we all know that it's been the women in our families, in our communities, that has been the backbone of keeping our families healthy and safe during this pandemic. And this year's theme is really an opportunity for all of us to honor our past and celebrate all of the achievements of women leaders locally, across the nation, and globally. In particular, I want to share that, women have long advocated for compassionate treatments and new directions in public health and in women's mental and physical health. We also know that women have historically led the way in mending divisions, healing wounds, and really finding peaceful solution. And this year in particular, we are really reminded of the importance of amazing women leaders as healers, as caregivers who are working every day to help promote and sustain really hope for future generations and their families. I'm excited, really, really excited today for our esteemed panelists, many of them whom I admire, who I look up to, whom I consider mentors of mine, and just so honored that I was able to bring all these women together in one virtual space to really share about their experience and what they've been doing in the community. Today, you'll get a chance to learn a little bit about each one of them and their incredible work. I know that they are also so busy, probably even more busy than me. And they're making time to be here today to really hold space, to talk about the great work that has happened in Sacramento. And I'm just so honored to have them on today and really to center them and also celebrate them. And so I just want to say thank you, Julie, Nilda, Rachel, Nolise. Thank you so much for being here today. And if you are watching live right now, thank you to you out there as well watching this and rooting everyone on. I'm just so grateful again to have this virtual space with all of you. So with that, first I'd like to introduce our guests. They'll get an opportunity to introduce themselves as well, but really excited to have Julie here, our CEO from St. John's Program for Real Change, Nelda, the Executive Director of My Sister's House, Rachel, Executive Director of La Familia Counseling Center, and Nolise, the Chair of the Sacramento Women and Girls Advancement Coalition and California's Black Women's Collective. And so thank you, thank you, thank you to all four of you for being here today. So here is our first question. This year's theme for Women History Month is about women providing healing and promoting hope. This theme is both a contribute to the tireless work of caregivers and frontline workers throughout the pandemic and a recognition of thousands of ways that women of all cultures have provided both healing and hope throughout history. First, I'd love for each of you to introduce yourself, your organization, your background, and your preferred pronouns, and then share how you have seen women supporting each other throughout the pandemic. How have women been part of the healing process for our community? So definitely introduce yourself. And then that's the first question. So with that, I will go around. We'll start with Julie.
All right, thank you so much for having me here. It's such a pleasure being part of this and being amongst such wonderful, amazing women in the community. So I'm Julie Hirota. I'm the CEO at St. John's Program for Real Change. Just a little bit about me. I was in my former career, I was in the high-tech industry as a mechanical engineer, but I found the love for philanthropy and nonprofit work because I really wanted to make a difference and serve people, right? I also, in kind of like my volunteer role, I'm an elected official for Roseville Joint Union High School District, so I'm a school board member right now as well. And I do that all because I like to give, and I think it's become my life's work that I discovered just mid career, I would have to say. But to answer your question about providing hope, I just wanted to share a little bit of a meeting that I had with one of our clients last week. So we meet with our clients pretty regularly at St. John's, and we have a support team that helps them through the program. And we were all sitting around the table. There's about 8 of us in a support team for one woman, and and one of my colleagues says, we're all struggling all the time and everybody's going through something. But if you just look around in this room, you have people who support you. And I thought about that because I thought, we're not always aware of all the resources that we have, but we just simply have to ask. And so by asking anybody in the community, asking those who are around us for help, it's become something that we've forgotten. And so I bring that up today because I want to remind everyone that we have so many resources, whether it's our mothers, our sisters, our friends, anyone of our family, our colleagues. There's a support network around, and I think knowing that takes the distance away from doing it all on your own and just having that hope. You're always inspiring someone, and someone's always inspiring you. So I share that story as a message of hope.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julie. Rachel.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here, and I'm honored to be with this panel of amazing women. So my name is Rachel Rios. I'm the Executive Director of La Familia Counseling Center. We are a nonprofit that has been in Sacramento for 49 years and just providing a variety of programs and services, including mental health services, employment services. We're one of the 9 family resource centers here in Sacramento. We provide youth services and health services and anything else that the community needs, like day camp, so for the children. So I have been at La Familia for about 10 years, but prior to that, my career was in juvenile justice, and I worked for the state. I started as a parole agent, but I worked my way through, and I retired as the director of California's Juvenile Justice Agency. I'm still heavily involved in working with juvenile justice issues. I'm the chair for California's State Advisory Committee, a commission on juvenile justice, and part of Sacramento's local commission on juvenile justice, as well as the Commission for Women and Girls. It seems like 2 different things, but really it's not. I think I started in nonprofits and working then into the system, the justice system. Coming back to nonprofits really gives me an opportunity to see all the things we can do to strengthen families so that they don't become system involved. And so really that's the goal of La Familia, is really strengthening families. And it takes a lot. It's not one thing, it's a lot of different things. And through this pandemic, that's what we've seen, that it's a lot of different things. We have seen women lifting up each other and helping each other, from women coming in to our center. So our center never closed during the pandemic. We knew that we needed to be here to be the support for so many families. And so just offering them opportunities. And we saw women coming in saying, it's that we need to work. We want to work. And when their jobs were closed or they were laid off, looking for other opportunities, and whether it's connecting them and them telling each other about resources and what was available, or the community health worker program, where women in the community learn about health and they become the messengers to other communities that trust, that cultural brokers and resources of trusting someone have taken on the role of saying, let me tell you where you can go get tested or vaccinated, or information about health. And even our farm worker women that have been there, just really strengthening each other, helping each other with daycare. it has been really amazing to see how the community can really lift up each other and just the role that women have played. I'm very just honored and humbled by them all.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel. And just thank you for your fierce leadership at La Familia. La Familia is also a state partner, Sacramento Alliance for Vaccine Equity as well. And so really grateful to you, Rachel, for your leadership in serving this community. Nolise, let's go to you.
Okay,
Please
well,
introduce yourself.
well, good morning. And first, let me say Happy Women's History Month as we go to conclude this month of celebrating what space we own in this month. I also am very happy to join this panel today. Thank you for the invite. My name is Nolise Edwards. I have been in the political and governmental arena over 30 years, so don't date me. Don't try and find out what my age is. But I am I am newly retired as of February, as of February. But in that space, I worked in the political arena, mostly for the legislature as chief of staff. I was a lobbyist by trade and worked in 3 of the governor's administrations, from Davis through Brown to our current governor, Newsom. So I again retired. I am doing some independent consulting, which I enjoy. But I've also, continued to do my advocacy through the organizations that I participate in, as well as network with organizations across, in this community and across the state. I'm chair of the Sacramento Women and Girls Advancement Coalition, and I'm one of the founding members of the California Black Women's Collective. So to answer the question, I think that the theme for this month is a mantra that we as women do each and every day, right? It is the thing for Women's History Month, but we live this, we breathe this, we do this each and every day. Women are the highest percentage of heads of household, and so when you ask, how have you seen women supporting each other throughout the pandemic? I think that what has been very helpful is the safe spaces that have been created for women to just be who they are, just be who you are, to do it in a safe space without criticism, without judgment, and do it from a lens of understanding and providing services and access for resources where needed, because the pandemic has impacted our personal lives as mothers, as grandmothers, as professional women, to balance that. And so I think we do this because that's who we are. We are survivors. We are warriors in this space. But to be able to have that space where you have like folks understand who and what you are and what you're going through, I think that's been one of the greatest supporting tools that I've seen.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nolise, for sharing that. And also, Nolise, congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
Also, I'm also going to say thank you publicly. Nolise is one of my incredible mentors as well. I'm so grateful for her mentorship. And thank you, just for your service and your steadfast advocacy for women and girls in the city on SWAC. So thank you so much, Nolise. Nelda, please do introduce yourself. And yeah, we want to hear from you. And I'm so happy you're on here too, Nelda. Okay, pause real quick before I start speaking about you. So, go ahead.
Thanks, Councilmember Vang. Thank you, Maya. And it's great to be in the privilege of wonderful women, in the company of wonderful women. And so Nilda Valmores, Executive Director of My Sister's House for almost 18 years now. And prior to that, doing things in the community for children, really in housing and education and social services. So really consider myself a child advocate at heart. And was thinking a lot about this question. And I think, as Nolise said, not only have women been doing this, during this pandemic, but the truth is that women have supported each other, I think, before the pandemic, and especially domestic violence survivors or / victims. One of the things that's so wonderful about them is that they are so generous, more generous probably than they need to be, and they help each other as much as they can. They help other women, and I think finding that support group is really important for them, along with finding individual ways that they can support one another, whether it be spending time, making meals, providing nourishment, helping each other with their children. There's just a variety of ways that I think that women have assisted each other prior to the pandemic, and especially thankfully during this pandemic. Doesn't mean that we don't have challenges or that they don't have challenges, but that there thankfully are a lot of good ways that they've been helping one another and themselves in the process.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nelda. And just thank you for your fierce advocacy over the many years at My Sister's House, really uplifting and centering women in our city and in our region. Many of you spoke about the pandemic, and we are entering the third year, right? And we've seen disparities across our communities. Just if you could speak about the work in your organization and what y'all have been doing, what are some of the key factors that really affect health and wellness of women and girls right here in Sacramento? And I know all four of you are on the front lines, right, every day with your staff, really uplifting and centering women and girls. And we'd love to hear directly from you, what are just some key factors that affected them during the pandemic and even now today? So with that, let me start with Nolise.
Great. Well, thank you so much. As you've stated, we've been dealing with this pandemic for 3 years now, and will continue. I mean, I was just reading something yesterday where, it was talking about another surge that may be happening. And so, the struggles that women go through in our daily lives of balancing work-life balance, I think it's just been exacerbated by the pandemic. I mean, we already know the disparities, in the health disparities and others that impact women and girls, but specifically impact women of color. And so I think that the pandemic has really continued to highlight the disparities and how the access that we have is not equitable across the board. And so I think that one of the key impacts that the pandemic has had on women is childcare. It has exacerbated the availability of childcare, the access to childcare, it just has really impacted it. And the other issue also that's happening, in addition to how that impact childcare, is that our children now are at home. I'm a grandmother of five, excuse me. And so when the pandemic hit, that means they all had to revert to online learning, right? And so that impacts, if you're a head of household, that impacts who's going to watch your child while they're at home trying to have online learning. So to balance that that with what you have to do every day, and a lot of women are the essential workers, right? Mm-hmm. And this pandemic has impacted their jobs, whether it be with the hours that they work, the income, so many other things. And I think that has, in terms of just the health disparities, just the work-life balance can be an impediment to what women go through every day, but also with the impact of COVID. So,
yeah. Thanks, Nolise. Thank you so much for that insight. Nelda, how about you at My Sister's House? What have you seen? And I'm just going to pause because I know we talk about this a lot. Like, we saw during the pandemic, just really the increase in DV among our families and in our communities. And I know that you and Julie and all of you, Rachel and Nolise, have been on the front lines. But if you can speak to that, what have you seen in terms of some of the key factors affecting health and wellness for our women and girls here in the city?
Yeah. And for those that are unfamiliar, My Sister's House helps victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking. We like to focus on our history is focusing on Asian Pacific Islander women and children, but we help survivors of all ethnicities, and pretty much our demographics represent Sacramento's community. So some of the factors that I've seen or that we've seen is, the stress of having 24/7 caretaking on families, on the women especially, and especially because their partners are abusive, right? And so they have to make sure that eggshell environment stays at eggshells, doesn't get broken, right? So they're walking on eggshells. Sorry, sometimes my idioms are a little bit off. And then, as Asians too, you hear about anti-Asian racism, and it exists in Sacramento, right? And so we have had stories of women not being wanting to call, being afraid to call because of they're afraid of getting out the door or getting accused of creating COVID, getting attacked or assaulted in some way, whether it be spit on or hit or just verbally assaulted. So there's that stress that occurs too. And the factors of like language, right? Language affects them so that they're not able to access help as easily. Usually there's been studies of how the Asian community has lost a lot of jobs, especially I think a high percentage due to COVID, especially the immigrant families, and even like getting a restraining order, right? Where the courts are doing a lot of things technology wise, and not just the courts, but other institutions to get services. Well, if you're not good at computers, if the system is in English and your English isn't great, you've got barriers right there. So you can't be getting well, you can't be keeping your family as safe as others because you're facing those barriers. And then lastly, of course, our women are dealing with all the stress and just like other women, children are at home. But I just want to call out partly because I was reminded of that of this weekend of how, children that are behind in schools, that are especially our immigrant children, they've got that stress of how do they catch their children up to where they need to be because they're already so far behind with the language and the cultural knowledge.
Thanks, Nelda. I mean, just listening to that, we still have so much more work ahead, right? It's really heavy. I know we're going to talk about really how do we take care of ourselves because there's so much coming at all of our families at once. But really just want to make sure, I also want to just hold space for all of you because all of you have insight of all of the key factors affecting women and girls. And, oftentimes I come to all of you because you all have the solutions on what we need to do on a system level to really, disrupt the system and address all of these inequities. And so just really want to say thank you to all of you. And Nelda, thank you so much for that insight. Rachel, what about you? I know you've been on the front line as well. All of you have, what are some of the key factors that you've seen at La Familia in the communities, really key factors that really impact the health and wellness of women and girls in the city?
Yeah. So during this pandemic, we've had to pivot and really become a health clinic. We've had to provide testing and vaccination and just information and really get the word out. We've already, prior to that, we were already working on health in the community, and we know that health happens in the community, right? And so we've been working on that. But, pandemics just underscore the inequities that already existed. It was already a challenge for many women, and especially women of color. And a lot of that has to do with health access. And a lot of that has to do with the neighborhoods we live in. Your zip code should not be a better predictor of your health than your genetics, but that is what's happening. And we know that because we know that our communities either create health or prevent us from having health. If you have no park in your neighborhood where you can't walk, where you can't do the things, if you don't have fresh air, if you don't have access to all the things that healthy neighborhoods have, you are going to have an unhealthier lifestyle. We know this. And so this existed already, and that's what's happening. We know that a lot of women of color don't have the same access to healthcare. And even with, covered California, we still are lacking women who are on Medi-Cal, have less chance of having a relationship with their healthcare provider or of having a steady healthcare provider. We know that, the services are not the same if you don't have that, premium healthcare. So these are conditions that existed. And then for immigrant women and undocumented women who may not even have access to that, they are already living without any access to healthcare. So where do they go when something happens, right? They find ways to be able to do that. So when you compound that to a pandemic that is just impacting everyone, it really underscores why it's important that we all have access to health, because this pandemic knows no boundaries, right? It's not going to discriminate. It's going to pass that out. And a lot of these women were, in fact, our essential workers. They didn't have have an opportunity to stay
Right.
home. They had to be in the workforce, whether it's maintaining our food supply. Like we ran out of toilet paper, but we didn't run out of fresh fruits and vegetables because those farm workers worked every day to make
Right.
sure that we had produce. And that's something that we don't recognize, just how much our essential workers really provided the backbone of our economy, throughout this pandemic. So when we talk about health, it's a broader issue. It's about creating healthy communities, healthy environments, having access to healthcare, dealing with the stressors, as Nilda was talking about. Mental health issues in our community are huge, and breaking down the stigma that a lot of our cultural communities have about asking for help around mental health, right? We've seen the increase in mental health, and just like Nilda said, in domestic violence. But when you create trust and you open that environment, people will come. We actually have a group for male Latinos who have been involved in domestic violence. Now think about that. That is mind blowing that the men
Yeah.
wanted to have their group and talk about this, but they felt they were in a safe place to talk about what's going on in their conditions, that they can interrupt this cycle of violence, right? And but that's what has to happen. Health has to happen in communities. You have to have all of these programs, as part of the infrastructure of healthy communities so that all our communities can thrive. And this pandemic just underscored what's lacking and what we need to do to move us forward.
Thanks, Rachel. And Ryan, if you can put up La Familia's information again, that would be really great. I did not know, Rachel, that there was a group for Latino men really talking about DV. I think that's incredibly powerful. So thank you to you and your staff and their leadership for holding space for that, right? Because oftentimes I think we always, blame the victim or the woman, but not really, holding space and talking about like the larger systemic issues that are happening just within our families and communities. So I want to say thank you so much, Rachel, for that. Julie, what about you? I know that you work with unhoused women and families every single day. How have you seen this pandemic impacting women and girls in our city and throughout the region?
Well, Sacramento did a really, great job of providing much more access to housing or overhead shelter during this pandemic. But we saw no shortage. I mean, we saw no shortage of women in our program, women and children in our program. And like Nilda had mentioned, Nilise and Rachel had mentioned, we had seen childcare having the impacts on the women. We've seen domestic violence increase. This had a domino effect onto women, right? Because they're paying attention to their children and trying to care for their children and families, or they're struggling to stay away from, a domestic violence situation. And what happened is, I think, our women's own healthcare of themselves took a back seat, right? Because we're caregivers and we take care of others. So what we saw at St. John's, in addition to what had already been described, is much more addiction and the complexity of the addiction and the breadth and depth of it. And so we've seen a rise in that. We've seen a rise in access to illegal substances, and how it's affected women, how it's affected the family, and how it's affected the community, right? Our community of women is a little different than it was years ago because of the impact of addiction. And so, fortunately, there's more and more awareness that's around that now in the homeless community and how to serve the homeless community. So we're finding more available experts to support this, more experts for us to learn from and provide the care that's needed. And all of those things had an impact that created this, what we think is greater spread of addiction.
Thanks, Julie. Thank you so much to all four of you. As I'm listening and you're talking about all the issues that you are all addressing within just families, within, working with women and children, I am thinking about each and every one of you of how are you taking care of yourself and making sure that you hold space for yourself, because this is, it's a long game, right? And it's so important to make sure that we take care of ourselves so that we could really serve our community. Women, when we think about women, they've been healers since ancient times, right? And Elise, you shared earlier, this is the work that we do each and every day. We're celebrating Women's History Month this month because it's March, but this is what we live and breathe every single day. And so my question to each and every one of you is like, how do you take care of yourself to prevent burnout and really to preserve your own mental health? Right. Really take care of you. I'm still trying to sort through that as a councilwoman. And I lean on all of you as mentors, right? I really want to hear from all of you because you've been in this game for so long. You've been serving this community for so long. So I want to ask you, as folks are listening, how do all four of you take care of yourself really to prevent burnout? And how do you take care of your mental and social emotional health? So with that, let's start with Julie.
Well, I'm an avid runner, so I spend a lot of time running, but that puts a lot of time of me thinking. So what I've had to do is really practice meditation and mindfulness and being present. And that's become kind of my faith. And watching others practice their faith has become very, very inspiring for me, because I'm seeing how much we lean on faith or not lean on faith in the past, but how important that becomes to a woman's life and having that source, whatever it may be, in my case, meditation and mindfulness. So I've been practicing that pretty routinely, much more now during the pandemic than the past. And just reminding myself what's important is what's right in front of me at this moment, because thinking about too much in the future or too much in the past, really takes away the good minutes, and the good minutes are right now.
That's really good, Julie. Those are really, really great insights. More meditation, mindfulness, that staying present in the moment. I'm taking notes, and this is live and recorded. So thank you so much for sharing. Nelda, what about you? What do you do to do self-care and to ensure that you don't have burnout?
So there are things that I think I do every day, from the small things to which include like my Starbucks iced tea therapy, to playing Wordle and Sudoku, to walking the dogs as my exercise. I wish I was a runner, but and then also hanging with good family and friends, breaking bread with them, making sure that we have some fun scheduled. And then lastly, I think staying focused and staying as positive as I can be is important for me.
Awesome. Thanks, Nelda. Nolise, what about you?
Well, I retired, so
you're retired, but you're still playing for the community. So you're retired. You're always out there serving the community.
Absolutely. But I think, with COVID coming and entering, into our lives, it really, had me stop and think and do a mental check about me, right? And I think a lot of people have and continue to do that. But, with COVID, it really had me take stock in really, where am I today? What am I feeling? What do I need? And my mother, who is, bless her heart, watching me from heaven, one of the things she told me years ago, and especially when I had my children, she said, you have to remember to do you. She said, if you don't take time out to do you, then you're not going to be in a good space where you can do for others. And I was a single parent, I'm, raising two boys. And I think that was her message to me, is you're going to be consumed with your children who you love. But if you don't do you and make sure you maintain you, then you're not going to be any good. So I do me. I have a good, set of friends around me and village and family members who allow me to do me. I'm the youngest daughter, girl in my family, but I feel like the oldest because, that's the role I play. And so, a lot of times that's just, an ongoing thing for me, but I do then have the opportunity to be in a space where I can just be me. Right. And my friends, I have a good friend, Kelly Todd Griffin, who told me one day, she said, meet people where they are. You don't know what struggle someone is going through. And so meet them where they are. And and stay in that space and and take care of you. And then I have a good glass of wine. So
glass of wine and do
there you go. There you go.
Thank you so much. No, that's really great. Rachel, what about you? What do you do for self-care and to prevent burnout?
So it's really hard, to be honest. As women, we want to be there for everyone. We want to do everything for everyone. We're moms, we're sisters, we're daughters. We are the boss, and you want to take care of all your staff. And so at work, one of the things I started doing is giving staff time off to, like, hey, we're just randomly going to close a little bit early, or half of you go home, and just giving people some time to do that. But I realized I wasn't doing that. And the last couple of years, in the last 3 years, I've had a lot of loss. I lost the three real pillars in my life: my husband, my mom, and my best friend since fourth grade. Just a lot, and each year it's been hard to kind of look at it. But what I started doing is recognizing that with each loss, I have to be grateful for those that are still in my life. And so I start every morning with just a gratitude, of the people in my life, the wonderful friends that I have, my children, my grandchildren, my great team, of colleagues here. And so I really start that. And then the other part is that my husband and I used to love to travel. And so I've started to do that again, and, just go with girlfriends and travel. Even during the pandemic, I found space. I went to Morocco last year with a friend that I just kind of met. And so she, and I went, and then I went to Antarctica with my daughter, which was amazing, and so I'm just trying to, find that space again and see the world. And every time I go out and I see the world, it just, we're closer, and it just gives me more gratitude. And, work is really healing for me. It really has been, to come in and to see the amazing community members that we work with and their gratitude. And so it's just finding that balance that, of space in here, enjoying what I have here, really, embracing what I am blessed to have, and then seeing the world, exploring the world.
Thanks so much, Rachel. And thank you to all of you for sharing your insights of what you do to make sure that you don't burn out. I'm taking notes as well, because I'm still trying to sort through that. So thank you so much for sharing. All of you are so incredibly inspiring. I mean, sharing the work that you do within your organization, how you also balance and really take care of yourself so you can take care of the community. I mean, all four of you really motivate me to always be better and do better, right? And so I know there are probably folks watching, other women watching this live chat, and really want to get involved in the community, because all of you serve incredible leadership spaces in the community. And so my question to you is, what advice do each of you have for other women in our community who look up to you as leaders, as I do? I look up to all of you. And if they want to follow your path into service, into nonprofit, into the public service arena, what advice would you have for women and girls who are watching this live chat right now? What is one thing you would share with them? So with that, we'll start with Nilda.
I only get to share one thing, Maya?
You can share more. We still have time, yes.
Okay. So first I would just say do it. Do it and on a practical level, learn budgets, get on a board, see what other nonprofits are doing. I think that's important. Second, I would say we need great people in this. So if you're thinking about it, definitely do it. And when I say great people, I want great people to be in the places that have the most need. Great schools don't need great teachers. The low performing schools, the most challenged schools, those need the great teachers. In the same way with our nonprofits, our smaller nonprofits may be needing, great leaders who can help make things work, right? And then I also want to say that recognize that this is a gift to ourselves. I think Rachel kind of, hinted at it, that I just want to emphasize. Let's acknowledge that, this is a huge gift that I've had for the past 18 years of being able to help victims of domestic violence, who inspire me every day and teach me to be more grateful, and teach me to be more charitable, and teach me how to be resilient, right? And so many other things that I learn, and the same can be true for you. And then finally, be the best that you can be. The last thing that I want is developing a system of community infrastructure where we're just providing middle-class people jobs. We need to be really changing our world. So be the best that you can be, so that all the time, so that we can bring your A game, so we can really change our world, our community, and change the lives of future generations.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that, Nilda. Really great advice for folks who are watching and want to know, how can I get involved in the community? Julie, what about you? What advice do you have?
Well, I want to just hinge off of what Nilda was saying. I think you can give the gift of your time, and to get involved. You know, this isn't always the best way to say it, but just say yes, right? Offer the helping hand, and because there's great gratitude in the work. And you know, I remember hearing when I was younger, it's always better to give than to receive. And it, you know, it took me to get to be this age before I realized how amazing that feels. And so everyone has a gift to give, and everyone has a little bit of time. And so, you know, nonprofit organizations, the community, the parks, the libraries, there's an opportunity in an area that you like. Just give some time. And a little bit goes a long way, because you'll realize then there's something else that I want to do, and there's something else that I can give, and there's another way that I can help. And you know, the greatest thing about doing the work that we all do is we get to go to bed every night thinking about making a difference. And there is no greater gift to myself than knowing that I've made some kind of difference.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julie, for sharing. Rachel, what advice do you have?
Yeah. So, along the lines of what everyone's already said, but also, just to let folks know, this is hard work. This is not for the faint of heart. This is hard work. I mean, I ran a state agency, and I feel like I work harder and more here than I did running a state agency, right? Because you have a lot of team members with the state, that can help you do that. And when you're running a nonprofit, it's a small core group of people who are really making things happen. So it is hard work. It's not for the faint of heart, but leadership is not a title. Anyone and everyone can be a leader. It is not a title. And we don't do titles at La Familia. I tell folks when they come in, like, I'm cleaning the bathroom. I was out there, this morning making sure our day camp is okay, and working with kids and doing whatever needs to happen, because leadership is not a title. And so the other thing that I think is really important that I say to folks, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. People need to know you care. Your staff need to know that you care about them, and you care about the mission of what you're doing. And the community needs to know that you care. And if you care, then the rest of it will come. Yes, there are skill sets that you need to have. Like Nilda said, you do need to know budgeting, so you do need to have some skill sets, but you can learn those things. You have to have the heart for it. You have to be willing to put in the work for it, and really listen to your community, because it really is about, I think, as Noli said, meeting people where they are. And that means you need to listen to your community. It isn't about what Rachel thinks should happen. It's about asking people, what do you need for me to make things move forward? And then being able to support and provide that resource. So that's my advice.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, here our hashtag is heart and hustle, right? It's also about the hustle piece, because you can have the passion, but if you don't have the action piece, you can't deliver for the community. And you're absolutely right. Like, I always say to my team when they're like, "Great job, Councilwoman," I'm like, "No, great job to all of you," right? It's always the team that makes the candidate, makes the elected. No one ever does anything alone. So I always give credit to my incredible team. And I'm out there hustling too, like canvassing. When we were running the clinics, I was out there registering people, translating, right? And you got to be out on the ground. I mean, that is what it takes, right? That is leadership, even without a title, right? So awesome. Nolise, what about you? What advice do you have for folks who are interested in serving in nonprofits, public service? What advice would you have for folks who are watching right now?
Well, first, let me just say that every advice that each of the panelists have provided, we should bottle that up and sell it. Okay. Or give it away. Just make sure we give it, because it is extraordinary. It's awesome. And I ditto to everything that everyone has said. The one thing, and I think that I would add to all of that, and I'm going to do this from a perspective of just some life's journey that I have been on, as a woman, but also as a Black woman, is that, when you say heart and hustle, my councilwoman, I say my, because I've gotten to know you so well, so no disrespect there, but when you say, heart and hustle, it's heart and hustle also with a purpose. I always tell, the young folks that I mentor, first know who you are, know what you want. Who you are is your choice. So be intentional about it, right? And then, and use who you are as your voice. You need to be the credible messenger, not only for you as an individual, for what you represent, for what you want to do, and for what you want to advocate for, whether it's your family, whether it's something civically in the community, whatever it is that you're doing, own it, be intentional about it, right? And use it as a resource. Know what you know, but also understand what you don't know, and look at those that I'm 65 years old. Dang it, I said my age. I'm 65 years old, but there is past, present, and future, right? So there are still individuals that I'm learning from. There are things that have happened to me in life that I have learned from and use as an experience. There are things that going forward in the future, right? So that's what I tell, the folks that come to me and talk to me about this. And I try and have conversations with each and everybody. And a lot of young ladies come to me, and I always say, I'm honored that you want to follow in my path, but I would be more honored if you take what you're looking at through me and do it in your path and in your way. So that's what I would offer.
I love that. I just wrote it down on my sticky right here and put it up on my wall. Heart and hustle. That's great, right? But it's heart and hustle with purpose. But that's absolutely true, because you could be really passionate, you could be working hard, but you'll be running in circles if you're not, the intentionality and the purpose is really important, right? You're so awesome, Nolise. Taking notes. That's really great. I know we're getting close to the end of this. I do have one more question before we close this panel. It's been really insightful. And again, I'm just so incredibly grateful. I'm practicing gratitude, grateful to all four of you for the great work that you're doing in the community. This last question is a little fun. And so I just wanted to ask all of you, given that it is Women History Month, and this is the last week of Women History Month, if you could spend lunch with a woman in history, who would it be and why? So that will be your closing question for today. If you could spend lunch with a woman in history, who would it be and why? And with that, we will do it in alphabetical order by first name. So, Julie, you are first.
I'm never a first by name. When you said lunch, then I started thinking, lunch, that could be a different person.
It is lunchtime. You can have lunch right now with someone. Yeah.
Well, there's so many inspiring women, but the one that comes to mind, and it's not just the woman herself, but it's the fleet of women and people that have inspired over the years, and that's Clara Barton. She had a quote about meeting a need. You must never think of anything except the need and how to meet it. And she was helping those in battle, but it wasn't just her. It was the movement. It was the people that created the movement. It was those that supported her as well, to become known, and then the trajectory that lasted forever, right? In the Red Cross. And so she's quoted and known for saying that and leading the effort, but knowing that if she were here to have lunch, I would bet she would say, I didn't do it alone, right? This was the act of many. And I think from the work that we do, we know that it takes the act of many. And I think Rachel had said it. It's, it's not just, the title doesn't really matter. It's what we do and how we do it. And so, so that's what I'd say.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Julie, for sharing. Nilda, who would you have lunch with? A woman in history. Who would it be and why?
So mine would be a woman that's still alive today, and it would be Marian Wright Edelman, who is, I think, one of our first child advocates on a national level, if not the first, and is a Black woman and just a woman of great spiritualness and great wisdom, I believe, and great strategizing skills. And so I would love to have lunch with her.
Awesome. Nolise.
there are so many women in history and past, present, and future that I would love to have lunch with. I mean, Michelle Obama, they go low, we go high, you know, you know, the our next, Supreme Court nominee through her journey. But, I'm going to take this a little deep, and that is, I think the woman that I would love to have lunch with today in history, that is part of my history, is my mother, because she embodied for me, she had I think less than an 8th grade education, but she was the smartest person that I knew. And she was able to teach, her children, there were 6 of us, about what this world would be in a realistic way. She didn't sugarcoat anything. It was about the prejudice that we were going to endure, about being the only Black family in the neighborhood. I went to a high school. There was only 7 Black kids, 14 when I graduated. I mean, those are the things that, you need someone who has lived through that to be able to teach that. And so I would love to have lunch with my mother today with all of the things that have occurred, good and bad, and where I'm at today, and get her thoughts and perspective. So that's what I'd like to have lunch with.
So awesome, Nolise. And I know your mom is so proud of you.
Thank you.
You are a product of her, because I think about your mentorship to me, right? And it's everything your mom has passed down to you. So thank you so much for sharing. That's super awesome. And oftentimes, it's always our mothers and grandparents who aren't written in history books, right? Because my question was women in history or women, right? But I think that's really awesome that you said you want to have lunch with your mom. I think that's awesome. So thank you so much for sharing. Rachel.
Yeah, well, gosh, like Nelda and like Nolise, it's hard. I was thinking of, Latina leaders and, certainly Sonia Sotomayor, being our first Latina on the Supreme Court, and, just so many women, right? Dolores Huerta, the farm worker movement, really, she was a greater force than what people recognize,
Right.
And I also thought of, my mom, because, my father passed away when she was only 55, and she ran a business in Oak Park for 30 more years. She ran it literally until she got sick. And so, just these are amazing people. But ultimately, then I would want to have lunch with those women. And one woman that I was very curious about having lunch with is Pearl West. Pearl West was appointed by Governor Brown to be the first female director of the California Youth Authority. And I was appointed by Governor Brown to be only the second woman to be the director of that agency. That agency later changed the name to Division of Juvenile Justice, but the same governor appointed the only 2 women, right, on his second round. And I guess I would want to just ask her what that was like, being a director and a leader at a time when these are male-dominated institutions, right? And not just your colleagues, but the fact that services weren't available. That was a big challenge for us to be able to have gender-specific services for young female offenders, right? And so I would just want to hear, did anything change in that period of time from her leadership to my leadership? And, did anything change in the obstacles that we had to face? And unfortunately, for many of us, a lot of things haven't changed. We've broken glass ceilings, but a lot of the conditions still exist. And this is why today is so important, that we talk about this, that we really support each other, and that we try and make those changes that are needed for our daughters, right, and our granddaughters.
Yes. Thank you so much, Rachel. And that's such a great way to end it, right? We really do it for a better tomorrow for our daughters and future generations, and really paving the way. Well, thank you so much, Julie, Nelda, Rachel, and Nolise, for taking time out of your incredibly busy schedule to be in virtual space, to share your insights, your wisdom, and the great work that all of you are doing. If you're watching this now live, or it's recorded and it's probably up right now on YouTube, on Twitter, and on Facebook, thank you so much for joining us. Again, I just want to thank our incredible panelists. Happy Women History Month. Just a few announcements before we log off. I do want to share that we have weekly office hours every Wednesdays from 4 to 5. I do my very best to make sure that I am accessible to the community. If those hours don't work for you, email my team at district8@cityofsacramento.org or call 916-808-7008. Or you can go to heartandhustle.org/office, and that's where you can sign up for our virtual office hours. I also wanted to share, we will be launching our listening sessions in April and May. As you know, we were able to secure 102 acres in South Sacramento to really dream big of all the things we want to do for this community. But before anything gets done, I always want to make sure that we really follow the lead of the community. And so we have 7 major listening sessions. And if you want to get notified about it, want to learn more, please go to heartandhustle.org/listen. And so we'll make sure to send you the information of the 7 listening sessions. 3 of them are neighborhood focused, 1 for our seniors, 1 for our unhoused advocates and unhoused neighbors, 1 for our youth, and 1 for our local minority owned businesses. And 3 of them really just for big neighborhood meetings to listen. And so please join us. We will be pushing out the flyers with all the dates and hope that all of you can join us in co-creating something really beautiful and amazing for our community. Lastly, we're also hiring in our office as well. So if you'd like to join our dynamic team, I have an incredible team, Team Heart and Hustle. We'd love you to join us. We're hiring an events coordinator because we do many community events. And we're looking for someone who can help us coordinate that because I have staff handling constituent, but we need someone who can just focus on helping us do neighborhood events. So if you love to plan events and also work in the community, this job is for you. So we're hiring right now, heartandhustle.org/hiring. You can go there to get the job description. It is on a rolling basis, but we're asking folks to turn an application by this Friday. And my team will review applications. We'll start interviewing. So if you know anyone, if you're watching this and you want to work for Team Heart and Hustle, check us out at heartandhustle.org/hiring. And then lastly, contact our office, right? If you can't do via email, you can call us at 916-808-7008. We'll do everything we can to make sure that we're meeting your need. Again, I'm here to really serve the community and so grateful for the opportunity to wake up every morning to do that. Again, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you who's watching. I'm super excited for our next live chat next month. Stay tuned for details. And with that, thank you so much, Nilda, Julie, Rachel, Nolise, for being amazing mentors, for being incredible leaders here in our local Sacramento community. I'm just so grateful to be fighting alongside all 4 of you to ensure that we create a better world for our families, our communities, and our daughters. So thank you so much. Have a great week, everyone, and happy Women's History Month. Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye.